Why do we tell kids things like, appearances don't matter, and it's not about winning, it's about having fun, when that is so clearly bull at best and actively causing problems at worst? I was told by parents and coaches it doesn't matter if you win or lose, it's how you play the game, and as a kid I thought that was BS. Now that I'm a bit older, I see the kernel of truth that whining isn't as important as improvement. If you spend all of your time fighting below your weight class, the only thing you're working out is your ego. Your real opponent, it's always your past self. It's how you play the game. The text part didn't discuss, it's not about winning, it's about having fun, but that is the easiest part to address, from my perspective. You cannot always win. You can always have fun. Winning is super fun, and striving to win is also super fun, but if you can't have fun unless you win, you will have a miserable life. The rest of your post, I don't hear that as much as you, and I certainly don't give that advice myself. I think you've hit on a far wider and political topic than you realize. This is in large part the discussion of tradition and social conservatism compared to modernism and similar schools of thought. The conservative says that wearing a suit demonstrates intent for serious discussion and applies gravity to a situation. There's a sense of absolutism in the value of the suit. A postmodernist might say you're wearing a piece of colored cloth with no intrinsic meaning, and any meaning you apply to it is arbitrary. There's a sense of relativism to the suit, the idea being that we only apply meaning to it because of arbitrary cultural forces. I could go on about this stuff, but I think you've hit on lots of similar but related topics that when looked at broadly speak to the competing forces of traditionalism versus modernism and conservatism versus liberalism. My personal view on such topics is that our culture is mostly not arbitrary and that many of the things we do without thinking are the result of millennia of societal evolution selecting for good cultural practices in competition to other societies with different practices. We might not understand fundamentally why we do certain things, wear a suit for example, but it can have wider effects on the nature of our interactions that we don't really understand but are likely still important. Simultaneously, I think it's important to continually assess in real terms why we do what we do and not become too obsessed with tradition to the point of it hindering us instead of helping us. Your question is almost too broad for a really comprehensive answer. Sometimes people have an agenda, sometimes people are limited by professional expectations, sometimes they think the truth is too harmful, and other times they're just being pragmatic / trying not to rock the boat and make life more difficult. I think those phrases are things we teach children because they are behaviors we want them to emulate, not instruction on how everyone in the world acts. It is better to not judge people by their appearances or also to pick a partner solely on looks. We should take care to pay attention to how people behave when making decisions about them. Likewise, people who care only about winning and treat life like a game to win will often work tirelessly to amass the most money and greatest titles and find that at the end of their life they are totally unfulfilled. I think the happiest and most well-adjusted people I know all live their lives by these types of principles. I don't see them being problematic at all. I'm curious where you get the idea that people say sex isn't an important part of a relationship. You seem to equate sex with lust as well. Also, you don't mention anything about it's about having fun in your body post. That aspect is important to things that don't matter, like 5-year-olds playing soccer. Winning doesn't matter in 5-year-old soccer. If the kids are having fun, that's what is important. If a kid isn't having fun, what's the point? It's a voluntary activity. If you tell them that winning is all that matters, they will only focus on that. There is a time when winning matters and it's not too often. Why do we tell kids things like, appearances don't matter and it's not about winning, it's about having fun? If we go directly to the bottom of the question, one possible answer would be, maybe nothing really matters, so certainly appearances and winning don't matter either. I am not trying to spin it, I am just talking about the core of the question. Do appearances and winning really matter? Let's say we oversimplify and say, okay, but we'll define things that matter as those things that a majority of the society agree that matter. Even with this definition, it varies quite a lot historically. Some things were extremely important 100 or 50 years ago, like being married and having kids, that are not a big deal nowadays. So your experience about caring about appearances and caring about winning might not be valid in 10 or 20 years when the kid is an adult. But okay, maybe you are somehow 100% sure that caring about appearances and caring about winning will still be positive? We haven't defined if it is nowadays, but let's skip that for the kid in the future. In that case, bluntly saying to a kid you should care about appearances and you should care about winning doesn't quite help the kid, mainly because both goals involve important factors that are outside the kid's control. Appearances is undeniably tied to genetics, being good-looking, and winning might depend on a team or genetics if you were short good look at being a basketball winner, etc. This can lead to anxiety and low self-esteem, which go in the opposite direction of good appearances and being a winner. So if your goal is to prepare the kid for this kind of stuff, you should focus on the things that she can control and setting minor goals for that, such as if you work out you'll feel better, short term, plus you look better, or take small steps to win, eventually you'll get there. The average human, especially one that is not fully developed yet such as a kid, performs better if the task is divided in smaller subtasks with smallest rewards. The same way we don't tell a 5-year-old, start learning to code or you'll be useless in 20 years when artificial intelligence has taken over the job market, even if the scenario is quite likely. Reality is complicated. Looks do matter, etc. But if you focus on winning, looks, and sex, you will miss a lot of the section's juice of life, which is mostly not about those things. It can take years before a tree bears fruit, so learn to enjoy the growth. You've probably been around people whose top priority is winning, or whose appearance is paramount over, say, actually doing something useful, or someone whose idea of a relationship equals fucking and treats their partner carelessly. Those are the people those reminders are meant to benefit, I think. I'm not saying that the top priority needs to be winning, and just saying acting like it doesn't matter is foolish. An example of this would be sports and school. A school with a consistent losing streak is going to fire the coach and possibly do away with the sport entirely, whether or not the kids have fun. A winning streak will have the opposite impact. Appearance-wise, I wish it weren't the case, but looking good is nearly as important as being useful. It's a sad truth, but a truth nevertheless. For example, 2 people interview for a job. Person A is attractive, dresses well, and has a decent resume. Person B is dirt ugly, wears sweats and a t-shirt but has a great resume. All other things being equal, I think we can agree that person A is more likely to be hired. As for the importance of sex, a couple can treat each other like kings and queens, but if the sex consistently is terrible, that will be a problem sooner or later. It isn't to say that's the only factor nor the most important one, but it is an important factor that can drastically affect a person's overall satisfaction with their life. Humans are sexual beings.